Good evening, everyone. Okay, we are about to get started. I ask that everyone would find your seat, please. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm Clarice Lacey. I am the former director of the Justice for Betrayal organization, and I also am a member of the NAACP. I would like to welcome you all to tonight's forum for our Parish President and our District 2 Parish Council seat. Tonight, we are here because we would like our voters to be able to make an informed decision when electing the candidate of their choice. Oftentimes, we see where you are making decisions based on what someone else is telling you, or the information that you may be getting from other people. So our goal is to make sure that you make an informed decision, as well as we would like the candidates, to be able to give their views and to give their visions and the directions in which they want to move this parish into. So tonight, the Justice for Betrayal and the NAACP has partnered up. This is our 6th year of hosting candidate forums. And we would like to thank you all, either you're in person or you are streaming on live. We would like to thank you for coming out and participate. Tonight we have our Parish President candidate, Mr. Grover Harrison. Could we give a round of applause to him, please? And we also have our Parish President candidate, Mr. Jason Manola. Could we also give him a round of applause? Through the process of planning for the candidate forums, we invite every candidate to participate in the forums. As you all see tonight, we only have the Parish President forum that's being hosted tonight. The Parish 2 candidates declined or just didn't respond. So because we are very transparent and we believe in accountability, we think that you as voters should consider that when you go to the poll. It is customary that before and after our forums, we begin with prayer. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Garrett Brown, who will begin with an opening prayer. Thank you.
Good evening. Heads are bowed. Eternal God, our Father, dear God, we come this afternoon, first, Father, just to say thank you. Thank you, dear God, for your grace, and thank you for your mercy. And dear God, we thank you, dear God, for every heart that's present, every home represented here tonight, every family that's represented here tonight. And Lord, we give you the glory, the honor, and the praise. We pray, dear God, for these candidates, for their families, dear God, for their children. Dear God, we pray for this city, this state, dear God. And we ask you, Father God, that you will make sure, dear God, do whatever you've got to do to make sure that this is done in decently and in order. And dear God, we thank you, dear God, for the host, dear God. We thank you, dear God, for the NAACP, Justice for Betrayal, dear God. And Father, we ask you that you will cover us in our departure. Give us traveling grace, dear God, as we go back to our respective homes. Dear God, Lord, we thank you, we praise you, we honor you, we give you glory. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Amen. Let me just say while I'm up here, I don't have to come back again. Ms. Lacey had asked me to say a few words as acting president of the West Baton Rouge Parish NAACP. Let me just say to these candidates that it is good to be here. You know, when you get an opportunity to hear where that person is coming from and to know what's on your agenda, I think your constituents should know how you feel, what you think, what your plan is. So that's why we kind of put these on so we can get a better idea of who's going to be representing us. And let me just say, as I said last year, that I upset a couple people. If you're not going to do the job, buy out. That's what I always say. If you, it makes no sense to run for a political position and you're not going to do the job. You're not going to represent the people. You have your own motives or whatever for running. Because right now in Louisiana, we are known as the good old boy state. You know, it's time out for these good old boy politics. You know, your friend, his friend, your buddy, his buddy. You know, we need people that's going to represent the people, that's going to try to make this a better place, a better state. You know, so many areas where we are behind. We're behind in education. We're behind in crime. I mean, as a state. So we asking the candidates, you know, to be real with your people, you know, to be honest with your people. Because we need, I mean, really need some good representation with the way things are going now and in this state. You know, you see so many politicians that just run of the mill. You know, it's either about $1, either about some power, or either it's a good old buddy thing. So we just want them to serve as if they're working for the Lord. Amen? Amen.
Thank you so much. Go ahead. Let's give Pastor Brown a round of applause, please. Here you go, Pastor. So the next person you will hear from is Mr. Shelton Barrett. This is one of our very own. He have been moderating our forums for the last 3 years, and we thank Shelton for always being there to the call for us. He will give you the rules, and he will also start off with the questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Let's give Ms. Lacey a round of applause, please. You know, this is a tremendous opportunity for us to hear from the candidates, and the Justice of a Trail organization has done an excellent job the last 6 years in producing one of the premier candidate forums in the state. So I am honored and excited to be your moderator for this evening. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to read the rules for each candidate. Also, 10 questions, general questions, have been provided to the camp for each candidate prior to the forum. And then following those questions, we will have questions that were submitted by the public via email. And we have some questions here that were submitted prior to the forum that were written on the index card. If you'll take a moment and look in your seat or around your seat, there are some index cards available. If you have some questions, please write them down and hand it to the beautiful ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. They have graciously volunteered to help us facilitate those questions to myself. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. The rules. Time limits for candidates' remarks and responses will be strictly enforced. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks, 1 minute to answer each question, and 2 minutes for a closing statement. A timekeeper, where's my timekeeper at? There she is. Everybody say, hey, timekeeper. A timekeeper will inform candidates with a sign when they have 15 seconds remaining and when they must stop speaking. The order in which candidate respond to the questions will rotate, and we'll start in alphabetical order. The candidate may not display props, buttons, signs, or any campaign-related paraphernalia. Still, a table for campaign literature, located towards the back, will be made available for everyone. There will be light refreshments served, and please be advised that these rules, gentlemen, will be strictly enforced. With that being said, we're going to start with our first question. And the first question will go to Mr. Grover Harris, according to our alphabetical order rules. What experience or qualifications do you bring to the role of Parish President that makes you the best candidate? I'll repeat the question. What experience or qualifications do you bring to the role of parish president that makes you the best candidate?
Well, good evening. First off, do we want to start the opening statement or you want to start the question?
I apologize. You are absolutely correct. We're going to start with the opening statements. Go ahead with the opening statement.
Okay. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule today to be here. It was once said, the right to vote in an American free election is the most precious right in the world. We live in the greatest country in the world because of our ability to vote. I almost robbed you guys of that because had I not been in this election, there would be no debate and my accountability buddy would not be here to tell you his plan, nor would I be here to tell you my plan. So this election is about new thoughts and ideas versus a system, a machine that has dominated for decades. We cannot continue to govern a parish the same way we did 20 and 30 years ago because the dynamics, the system, the makeup, the consistency of this parish has drastically changed. I'm Grover C. Harrison III, and I'm a candidate for West Baton Rouge Parish President. My entire life, I've wanted this particular position. I articulated that back in school in civics class when we were asked, what do we want to be when we grow up? My response was the parish manager. Under the police jury system, that's your parish president. Every step of my life, every choice, every decision has led me to this point. From the classroom in Irville for Head Start to the graduation at Bruley High School, it has placed me here. And I thank you for being here with me.
Now we have an opening statement by Mr. Jason Manola.
Thank you so much. I was told we could walk around a little bit, so I'm going to choose to stand here. First of all, I want to thank the Justice for Trail and NAACP for hosting this event tonight. And it is awesome to have an opportunity to be able to exchange our visions of what we see the parish in the future. But I'd like to start off by introducing my wife, Ms. Tricia Manola. Some of you may recognize her. We've been married for 33 years. She's actually been a teacher here at Con for 33 years. I also like to recognize my oldest son, Blake. Blake is a teacher and coach at Bruley High School, and my youngest son is not here tonight. He's actually an assistant baseball coach at University of Memphis. But I wanted to start out by introducing them and just talk a little bit about my candidacy have been about three simple things. First of all is experienced leadership. And we're going to talk more about that as we go through the questions tonight. But the second part is commitment to this parish. My wife and I, we have been committed to this parish our entire lives, actually 4 generations worth. 4 generations have lived here in West Baton Rouge Parish. And then the third thing is about accountability. I truly understand that the role of the parish president is to be held accountable to the people of West Baton Rouge Parish. But I can assure you there's nobody that's going to hold me more accountable than I'm going to hold myself. Character and integrity is something to me that can never be questioned or challenged. That is something that from my family that I will never allow to be jeopardized. But again, as we go forward, I look forward to exchanging more about my experiences and so forth and my vision for the future of this parish.
Thank you, gentlemen. Could we both give both gentlemen a hand, please? It takes a lot of bravery to get up and express your vision for the future, so we thank you for those opening statements. Now we are ready for the first question. Mr. Harris, this is for you. What experience or qualifications do you bring to the role of parish president that makes you the best candidate? And I repeat the question again. What experience or qualifications do you bring to the role of parish president that makes you the best candidate? You have 2 minutes.
My role and my experiences are vast. First of all, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a son, which means I'm a provider, a protector, and I have to be obedient because my mom is me. So with that, I am a former educator. I was a coach and a teacher. I mentored kids. I have dedicated my life to serving this parish. I was aquatics director for West Baton Rouge Parish after the drowning of one of my students, a fifth grader by the name of Cardell Nelson. I took the role then of leadership to making sure that every kid in this parish that wanted to learn how to swim knew how to swim. I left teaching and I went over to the YMCA, budgeting. You can't spend money that you don't have. So we had to raise money to spend the money to provide for the livelihood of myself and my staff. We also did a development campaign where we had to canvass the entire city looking for major donors to rehab our Y, not just my branch, but the entire system. Work with senior citizens. I've also been in the healthcare field where I'm in charge of the entire state of Louisiana, making sure we connect people with resources that they need, not only to live, but to strive and thrive. I take my roles and responsibilities very, very seriously. If you're looking for experience as a politician, I don't have that. I have experience as a public servant and a servant of the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manola, the same question. What experience or qualifications do you bring to the role of parish president that makes you the best candidate? Again, I'll repeat the question. What experience or qualifications do you bring to the role of parish president that makes you the best candidate?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to go on by saying I am a certified public accountant by trade. I graduated from LSU in accounting and also obtained my CPA as a certified public accountant. But the thing that I think I bring to the table is experienced leadership. Last 30 years of my professional career, I've been involved in leadership responsibilities. I was actually the chief financial officer for a company called Ports America, where over the Gulf region, which had companies basically from Houston, Texas, all the way to Mobile. And part of my responsibilities is making sure, providing a budget and making sure that we stayed within the means and provided the needs of each of those individual businesses. But the last 15 years, I've also served as chief administration officer for West Baton Rouge Parish. Those responsibilities include, many things from all of our different departments, all the way through, and also incorporating the budget as part of it. But I think an experienced leader is critical in West Baton Rouge Parish, especially over the next 4 years. And I'll tell you why. The next 4 years, West Baton Rouge Parish will have the most infrastructure dollars spent that has been spent in our lifetime, okay? And that's things like the LA1 415 connector. That's the Bayou Stumpy major drainage canal. That's also major water improvements done on the northern end of our parish and so forth. And I think we need to have an experienced leader. I've been involved with those projects from actual grant portion of them all the way through. And I look forward to be able to use my experiences to push these projects through to make sure they get completed on a timely and also within the budgetary means that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. I see you all are filling out those index cards. Once you're filling them out, just hold them above your head, and we'll have one of our assistants bring the cards up to us. Thank you. All right, the second question. Many parts of the greater capital region are seeing substantial development, with some even calling for a pause to address traffic, flooding, and infrastructure. Do you hope to see development in the parish, or do you feel like we are the right size? Mr. Manola, we'll start with you since we started with Grover first. Would you like to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Sure. Many parts of the capital region are seeing substantial development, with some even calling for a pause to address traffic, flooding, and infrastructure. Do you hope to see more development in the parish, or do you feel like we are the right size?
Thank you for that question. I'm a believer in responsible development. And what do I mean by that? That sounds like, buzzwords being used. But when we have developments that are brought before us in the parish council, I think things like the major infrastructure, drainage, traffic, all those things need to be reviewed. When we have a development that comes before us, we pendant drainage study to where it's zero impact on the surrounding residents. What do I mean by that? That means that the current new development that's being proposed will provide zero impact or the same impact that it was as undeveloped land. You ask yourself, well, how does that happen? Well, it happens through what they call retention ponds, retention areas. We have to make sure that the new development does impress upon other neighbors a burden with additional drainage and so forth.
Thank you. Grover, I'll repeat the question for you. Many parts of the capital region are seeing substantial development, with some even calling for a pause to address traffic, flooding, and infrastructure. Do you hope to see more development in the parish, or do you feel like we're the right size?
I definitely feel as if we need more development in the parish. But how do we grow? Smart growth is important. If we haven't learned anything, we should have learned from Sugar Mill. I was at the table when the developer told us he was going to put 1,500 to 2,000 homes behind Sugar Mill. Since that, traffic has gotten worse. Drainage has gotten worse. We have parts of the parish that are 14 miles away from a grocery store. As I walk from house to house, door to door, knocking, one lady I came up on, she said, if you want my vote, I need one thing. I said, what is that one thing? She said, get us a store where I can buy ice cream. I have not bought ice cream in years because if I go to Walmart in Port Allen, it's iced milk by the time I get home, or if I go to the Walmart out in Point Capee, it's melted by the time I get home. So we definitely need additional growth, but smart growth. We need the intercoastal, the 415 Connect. These are major projects, as Mr. Manola alluded to, that will be completed. We now have 3 intercoastal bridges that are failing, as opposed to the 2 we had at first. So we have to take our time. We have to go in the right direction, the smart direction, slow and steady. Do our studies, make sure we're building for everyone. Not just rooftops, but quantity cannot be considered over quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you. What do you see as the most pressing issues you would face as parish president? And I'll repeat that again for you, Mr. Harrison. We'll start with you. What do you see as the most pressing issue you will face as parish president?
There are several issues that I will face if elected parish president. The first and most important is the youth. The youth is a resource that is constantly being replenished, and we have to do our best to embody and empower them. Let their voices be heard. So for that, I would like to establish a youth council so they can come up with their creative, innovative ideas to help us as we plan the future out. Because the projects that we're referring to have been on the table for at least 25 to 30 years. So I know for a fact, at least 25 years that we've talked about these same things. So this is a relay. It's not a sprint. So we have to be able to pass the baton to the next generation. Number 2, infrastructure. We have to be able to navigate this parish safely and efficiently. It took us 45 minutes to leave my home, which is on a clear day, is a 6-minute ride. But due to the traffic and congestion, it took us a long time to get here. Just imagine if that was an emergency vehicle trying to get somewhere. Same differences. Number 3 is the supermarket and the resources on the northern end of the parish, because they feel ostracized and as if it's a forgotten part of our parish. And it's not. I'm from the northern end of the parish. I spent most of my adult life on the south end of the parish, but I'm from the north. And I have family members, you guys have family members and relatives that need resources and need to be connected to the rest of the parish. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manola, same question. What do you see as the most pressing issue, rather, you will face as parish president?
Thank you. The most pressing issue can be summed up in one word: traffic. And I think what we need to do is we need to change the narrative. For so long, when it comes to the capital area region, West Baton Rouge Parish is viewed as that small parish of 30,000 people right across the river. We're much larger than that. Our daytime population is 3 to 4 times that. So we need to press upon the folks across the river that our parish is more than just a little 30,000 community. It's about 100,000 folks. We need to not only be involved in those meetings when those discussions are taking place, but we need to be at the table. We need to be at the head of the table, because we need to impress upon them the sense of urgency. Mr. Harrison just talked about, yes, the South End trying to come to the north, the intercoastal on certain days, you're talking 45 minutes. Well, that's something that can't be accepted. That's not acceptable. We're having to go, just within the last 2 months, I've had a couple of meetings with actually trying to locate an emergency room here in West Baton Rouge Parish to provide services. Folks know that if someone has a stroke, seconds, minutes is critical. And if we have to sit in line, or God forbid have to wait for somebody to be medevaced to East Baton Rouge Parish, that's valuable seconds. That's valuable seconds in the long term of someone that's going through that. So we've had some very encouraging conversations, and I look forward to continuing those conversations so that we can provide that service to our folks here in West Baton Rouge Parish.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Harrison. What is your stance on taxes and budget management? How do you plan to balance the budget while meeting the needs of the community? I'll repeat the question. What is your stance on taxes and budget management? How do you plan to balance the budget while meeting the needs of the community?
Mr. Berry, I'm going to go, but we're supposed to be alternating. I listened very well. Come on, we'll be good. So here we go. Taxes and budget. First thing in office, I have to evaluate what our current spends are. Line item by line item, appropriation by appropriation. Make sure that we cancel or remove any bad spends or negative liabilities. Once we do that, we see where we are. This parish has traditionally had a strong financial standing, a strong financial background. We can always broaden our tax base by bringing additional businesses in, additional homes, but making sure the money is spent properly. One thing I alluded to earlier as the YMCA, you couldn't spend money you didn't have. So as that being the foundation of my physical skills, it set the tone for everything else I do. Every other job I've had, you always look and see where cuts can be made, when cuts can be made, and are these smart spends? So balancing the budget, which I've done for the last 20 years on all of my occupation and career, we can definitely balance the budget, but we have to be smart about what we have, maximize our resources, and make sure accountability and transparency are there.
Thank you. Again, you are correct. Manola, same question. What is your stance on budget management? How do you plan to balance the budget while meeting the needs of the community? Again, the question is, what is your stance on taxes and budget management? How do you plan on balancing the budget while meeting the needs of the community?
Thank you. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, my background is I'm a CPA by trade. The last 30 years of my professional career have involved balancing budgets. When I was the Chief Financial Officer for Ports America, that was one of my major duties, was to have a budget presented for all of our companies that, again, like I said, range from Houston to Mobile, Alabama. And we had to, and while it's different from a parish government, it has some similarities because each one of those individual companies had their own needs. And each one of those companies thought that their needs were greater than everybody else's. So we had to, as a Chief Financial Officer, figure out exactly what the needs are and how do we allocate that. And as far as my role as the Chief of Administration for West Baton Rouge Parish, I've been doing that for 15 years. I've been very involved in that process for 15 years. And how do you do that as far as meeting the needs of the entire community? It's by having those conversations, sitting down with each one of our council members individually, discussing what projects, what needs within their parish that are most important to them, and then taking those needs and consolidating them into a parish government to where, again, the needs of our entire parish is met for the benefit of all of our people. So, again, I thank you.
Thank you. We'll take some questions from the audience real quickly. Mr. Manola, we'll start with you on this one. What will you do to grow the northern end of the parish? What will be done to facilitate work from home in the north end of the parish? Two-part question, and I'll repeat it. What will you do to grow the north end of the parish? What will be done to facilitate work from home in the north end of the parish? For example, internet.
Okay. First, say, what would I do to facilitate growth on the north end of the parish? I think that starts with communication with folks from the north end of the parish. The needs, as we talked about earlier, the needs of our parish are different in different regions. Again, I go back to what I said earlier, responsible growth. In the northern end of the parish, we also need to preserve some of those folks like large lots, not major developments. We need to respect that. We need to respect what their wishes are of the parish. That needs to be taken into consideration. But again, I think it comes with having those conversations, sit down, and that's what our master plan that we just completed is all about. We had opportunities where we went throughout the parish and sit down and had public input on what they were looking for as far as growth in each separate sections of the parish. Well, that's something as a parish president, we need to respect that, in my opinion. Now, as far as the work from home, which was the second part of that question, the thing we need to facilitate most for that is internet infrastructure. It's something that's lacking in the far northern, more rural areas of our parish. And there is a grant that was approved to have a provider, Star Communications, that's actually going out and doing that as we speak today. That's a big component of being able to work from home. And again, I know that a lot of businesses and a lot of folks are strongly encouraging that in this day and time, especially with traffic concerns, especially when they go to, we haven't talked about it yet, but the widening of I-10, which we're going to be severely impacted by. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that it's not. We're not. We are going to be. It's our responsibility to try and minimize those impacts by working with our law enforcement folks and also working with our industry in the parish. How can we schedule shifts? What can we do differently to impact the... Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison, same question. What will you do to grow the northern end of the parish or the north end of the parish? What will be done to facilitate work from home in the north end of the parish, for example, internet?
In order to grow the northern end of the parish, the first thing we need to do is ask the people what they want. I know we have a master plan, but we want to make sure everybody's input is there. When you're not able to meet your basic needs in your neighborhood, then your neighborhood is severely lacking. Fresh fruit, fresh vegetables make that a food desert. We service food deserts. How do you do that? You employ you employ the cooperation of fruit stands. You bring in grocery. Internet is definitely needed. So with that, Mr. Manola alluded to the STAR system that's coming in for the internet. You definitely need that. I myself work from home from time to time. You invite a different type of employee when you have the ability to work from home. Make sure that's what the people want. They definitely need it by it being such a far distance away from everyone and being ostracized and isolated. So with the internet system, hopefully the grant and prayerfully the grant is approved, but if not, have a plan A, plan B, plan C to make sure that people get what they need. If it's not, if it's no more than inputting broadband cards into the internet, into their computers, where they have a code on the phone that activates their internet where they can catch cellular service. I have staff in here right now that works in some of the most rural parts of the state, Cut Off, Louisiana, Ruston, Bastrop. They all cover the entire state, and we make sure internet is not an issue to them because we as employers supply the internet cards for them until a more stable system is allowed and operable for them. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one more question from the audience before we go back to our general questions. And Mr. Harrison, we'll start with you. What are responsibilities of the parish president? This is a two-part question. And what can be done to keep talent in West Baton Rouge Parish? I'll repeat the question. What are the responsibilities of the parish president? And what can be done to keep talent in West Baton Rouge Parish?
The responsibilities and roles of the parish president are to represent the parish in a positive manner. It is to draw and keep existing businesses in the parish. It's to expand and expound on infrastructure and resources that we have in the parish. And it is to lead us into the future with innovative, creative ideas. In order to keep talent, you have to make your jobs attractive. You have to make your benefit package attractive. By doing this, people want to be a part of your parish. I spoke to a parish worker and I asked about employee assistance. Employee assistance is a program that incentivizes workers to get a higher education, whether that's working toward a degree that's related to their job, or giving them additional trainings and staffings to give them certifications. We don't offer that right now. That is not being offered. That is something that young people thrive and strive for, is growth. Because if you're not growing, you're dying in any situation. So you always want to grow your bench strength as a leader, as a supervisor, and as a parish president. You want to go at least 3 layers deep. You don't go into a game with one quarterback. So you cross-train to make sure you have competent, confident people to do the work, because we have an aging workforce. We have several people that are getting ready to retire in key positions. Who are there next up? Who's next? Who's going to fill that gap? And as parish president, it's my job to develop the entire team. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manola, same question. What are the responsibilities of the parish president, and what can be done to keep talent in West Baton Rouge Parish?
Thank you. If you look at our home rule charter, which is actually the guiding principles for what's the role of the executive branch, which is the parish president, the first line item it says is that the parish president is the chief executive officer of West Baton Rouge Parish. So what does that mean? Well, that person's the ultimate responsibility to make sure that the parish stays fiscally responsible, but also make sure that the services are being provided to our residents. The other role of the parish president, in my opinion, is being responsible to the people of West Baton Rouge Parish, being responsible to not only the voters, but all residents of West Baton Rouge Parish. Second part of that question is, how do we keep talent? And that's something currently within the parish we've had multiple conversations on. We do offer certain programs. Within our different departments, we've offered things such as CDL training for folks, where we would actually bring somebody in, do the CDL training, pay for it at the parish's expenses, to give those guys an opportunity to take those next steps with the parish, because certain levels as you increase requires a CDL. And the thing with a CDL is that it does benefit the parish, but it also benefits the employee. That person, that CDL, that's their CDL. That's not the parish's CDL. That's theirs. That goes with them. Of course, we would love to keep them here and love to see them move up within the ranks of our parish. But that CDL, and that's just one example. We are constantly doing different levels of training to try and get our guys to take those next steps. And we do have folks that want to be leaders and want to take those next steps. But we also have, just like in every other business in the state and in the country, you have folks that are comfortable. They're comfortable where they're at and what they're doing. They're able to provide for their family and so forth. And I respect that. That's fine. But we also want to give them the opportunity to advance if they choose.
Thank you. Mr. Manola, we'll start with you with the next question. We're going to go back to our general questions. How will you engage with the community and solicit feedback on important issues and decisions? The question again is, how will you engage with the community and solicit feedback on important issues and decisions?
The first step with engaging with the community is something that I've always had and I will continue to have if I am able to serve as your next parish president, and that's an open door policy. Anybody that has worked with me or has come by my office knows that my door is open at all times. Folks are always welcome to come in, exchange ideas, and so forth. But there's another couple of pieces that I would like to incorporate. Town hall meetings, events like this. I think on occasions we should have meetings. We should go out to, the parish president should go out to the community. We should go out to William and Lee. We should go out to the Earlville Community Center. We should go out to the Addis Community Center and to talk about the projects that we have going on within their areas, within their communities. But more importantly, in my opinion, as a parish president, to listen to what those folks express as their needs or things they would like to see accomplished in their district or in their communities. So I think that's the main key things that I would like to incorporate within the parish.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison, same question. How will you engage with the community and solicit feedback on important issues and decisions? Again, the question is, how will you engage with the community and solicit feedback on important issues and decisions?
Well, I would engage with the community for their feedback, multiple platforms. Of course, social media. Your young generation, they don't come to meetings for the most part, but they want to be heard. So you establish a social media platform that allows that to take place. I agree with Mr. Nola on the town hall piece. However, I would like to have a standing meeting, a set date in each area, so that when the schedule becomes cumbersome and it gets to be busy and life is happening, you still make sure you have that meeting. You get that meeting because you have to listen. You have to listen not to respond, but you have to listen to comprehend. Make sure what your plan is for the parish is what's needed for the parish and what's wanted by those residents. Be open, because you have employees that are going to come to you and they're part of your community. So you have to be open to change. You have to be open to their responses. Sometimes things we think as leaders may not be correct, but you have to be willing to listen to the other side and the other perspective and point of view as to why this may not be the time or this may not make sense to the community. So standing community meetings, of course, the newsletters and things that currently go out, West Side Journal for those that still read newspapers, and social media platforms to make sure that everyone is being heard.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison, we'll start with you with this question. Particularly an important question in light of recent events. What avenues do you feel that the West Baton Rouge Parish President can take in supporting the safety of West Baton Rouge Parish schools and students? If you receive a $1 million grant, what programs do you feel can be implemented and would be most impactful? I'm going to repeat the question. What avenues do you feel that the West Baton Rouge Parish President can take in supporting the safety of students and schools in West Baton Rouge Parish? And if you receive a $1 million grant, what youth programs do you feel that can be implemented and what would be most impactful?
Well, thank you, Mr. Baird, for that question. That question is very important because that's something that's near and dear to my heart. It's the youth. I've spoken about that prior and previously. And if we receive $1 million for a grant, the first thing you do is, who wants a bigger government? Okay, no hands were raised. You find the entities in your area that are currently doing the work. much as East Baton Rouge Parish did with the recast grant, which I was selected to serve on that board. Recast is a $1 million grant that's given by SAMHSA. What happens, you have to have some traumatic events to take place. Alton Sterling's shooting, the flood of 2016, and the officer's ambush triggered the $1 million grant. It was renewable for 5 years. I was the originator on that board, and what we did was we partnered with local agencies and local entities to make sure the kids were being taught and reached. You have to change the mindset of these kids. When you say safety, when you can have 100 police officers in here, and if someone wants to do the wrong thing, it's going to happen until you reach the mindsets of those children. How do you do that? Programs such as Youth Build, programs such as MRT, which I'm a certified trainer, moral recognition therapy. That's where you teach kids that everything starts with them. It's no one else's fault. Your actions put you where you are, choices and consequences. That's where these things lie. Mental health first aid. It takes a village to reach these kids. So you want to make sure that the money that you're receiving is spent well. And the first rule of a grant is, when they're giving it to you, is if this grant goes away or is dissolved, can the work continue? I have mechanisms, I have resources, I have the capabilities to ensure that these resources continue with existing partnerships that we have in this community.
Thank you. Mr. Manola, same question. What avenues do you feel that the West Baton Rouge President can take in supporting the safety of our West Baton Rouge Parish schools and students? If you receive a $1 million grant, what youth programs do you feel can be implemented and would be most impactful? And I'll repeat the question one more time. What avenues do you feel that the West Baton Rouge Parish President can take in supporting the safety of our West Baton Rouge Parish schools and students? If you receive a $1 million grant, what youth programs do you feel can be implemented and would be most impactful?
Thank you, Mr. Barry, for that question. West Baton Rouge Parish is unique in several ways, but one of the ways West Baton Rouge Parish is most unique is that the partnerships that we have with our school systems, law enforcement, and so forth, working together for the betterment of West Baton Rouge Parish. Safety in our schools is near and dear to me. I served 20 years on the school board in West Baton Rouge Parish as a public servant. My wife, as I mentioned earlier, my wife is a longtime teacher here at Con. My son is also a teacher. My daughter-in-law is a teacher, and my sister is actually the principal at Caneview. So safety in our schools is extremely important to me. If I was fortunate enough, if we received a $1 million grant, where would I think would best be served? Actually, my wife and I were talking about this several months ago. I can remember the early days of her teaching, which I'm not going to tell you how early because that would probably give away her age there. But the early days of teaching, there was a mentor program that West Baton Rouge Parish has. Some of you may remember Mr. Hall Davis, Mr. Laddie Bolden, Mr. Owen Coe. Those folks were at our schools weekly, meeting with our kids, talking with our kids, sharing experiences with them, and also giving them opportunities that they may not have been able to have alone and by themselves. That mentorship, that mentoring program to me is something I think that is valuable, is something we need to bring back to our schools. We need to teach our youth, which is near and dear to all of us, about conflict resolution. How do we resolve conflict? That's something that we need to continue to teach. We need to incorporate that into our curriculum that we're teaching at the schools. That also is a big factor in this. But again, public safety for our schools is something that's near and dear to me, and it's something that we need to improve upon.
Thank you. Ms. Manola, we'll start with you with this question. West Baton Rouge Parish residents are diverse in their background and needs. How will you ensure that your policies and initiatives are inclusive and benefit everyone in the community? The question again is, West Baton Rouge Parish residents are diverse in their backgrounds and needs. How will you ensure that your policies and initiatives are inclusive and benefit everyone in the community?
Again, thank you, Mr. Barry. And look, I can sit here and tell you folks that my policies and my initiatives will be inclusive to all of West Baton Rouge Parish. I can sit here and tell you that. But I ask you to look at my experiences. Look what I have done. Look what my family has done. As I mentioned earlier, my wife's a 33-year teacher at Conn Elementary School. Not because she had to be a teacher there. It's because she chose to be a teacher there. Because she chose that that would be where she would have the biggest impact on students and on the youth in our community. But also, you know, from my standpoint, talk to folks that I've served with on the school board. Talk to them, ask them, you know, when it comes to looking at the needs of our entire parish, where was I at on that? I supported as many projects on the northern end of parish all the way down to the southern end of parish because we are one community. We're not a northern end of parish, we're not a southern end of the parish. We're one community. We just got a little bridge that separates us, and that shouldn't be the case. But again, I ask you to do your due diligence. I ask you to do your due diligence on me. Talk with council members that I've served with through the years. Talk to school board members that I've served with. Ask them if my policies and my initiatives will support the entire parish. And I think what you'll find is that you'll say that he's committed to the entire West Baton Rouge Parish.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison, same question. West Baton Rouge Parish are diverse. West Baton Rouge Parish, residents are diverse in their backgrounds and needs. How will you ensure that your policies and initiatives are inclusive and benefit everyone in the community?
Once elected as the West Baton Rouge Parish President, policies and procedures and initiatives are going to be key. Policies are simply your rules, your guidelines, what you intend to do. But your practices could be something totally different. So I want to make sure, to coin the phrase, practice what you preach. I want to make sure that everyone is included. Check my track record. My current employer, we buy from vendors all over the state. So I made sure that we targeted a DBE, Hudson Initiatives. DBE is Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. That could be minority, whether it's whether it's a black male, female, brown, whatever, any type of minority business. We make sure we do business with them. We were the first MCO to do so. And we grew it to the point that now it's a practice where everyone has to have a spin with the DBE. It's a part of the grant approval guideline, which there are millions of dollars that are spent with disadvantaged black, disadvantaged minority, disadvantaged brown people. We want to make sure that your leadership team reflects your community. You're serving a parish. This is a hodgepodge of people in here. We want to make sure everyone is represented here equally and evenly across the board. We want to make sure that your dreams are being met as a parish. I want to incorporate what is known as the Employee Activity Committee. That's where we embrace the differences in the cultures. You learn something about the Native American culture or the First Nation. You learn something about Eskimo Nation. You learn something about Cajun. You learn about the African American. You learn about the French and the Italians and the Spanish that came here. That's true diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more general question, but you guys have been extremely active in asking some questions, and that's great. We love audience participation, so we're going to start asking some questions from the audience, and we'll close with that last general question, if that's okay. All right. So let's start. First question from the audience. Well, actually second. What do you see as the biggest problem with the current administration, and how would you fix it? What do you see as the biggest problem with the current administration, and how will you fix it? And I believe that question is for you, Mr. Harrison.
Well, I'm an outsider. I am on the outside looking in. Mr. Nola, you're going to have better insight than I. That's one of my biggest strengths, knowing what I don't know, but what it appears to be. You want to make sure that your leader is reflecting the rules and responsibilities of a leader. You want to make sure you're following what is being asked of others, not a do as I say, don't do as I do. There's a poem, Creed. There's a line in that poem that says, I would rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. That appears to be one of the biggest problems in the parish, making sure that the rules are for everyone. No one is above the law, and being an example of the leadership that you're asking your employees to exemplify.
Thank you, Mr. Manola. The same question. And I repeat the question. What do you see as the biggest problem with the current administration, and how do you plan to fix it? What do you see as the biggest problem with the current administration, and how do you plan to fix it?
Thank you for that question. I won't say it's the biggest problem, but it's something that I think we need to focus more of our energy and more of our efforts on. And it's what I talked about earlier. We need to be out in the communities. We need to be having these town hall meetings. We need to be listening to the people of our parish. We need to engage them in the conversation. We need to understand what the needs are. We need to strengthen and develop our relationship with our council members. We need to make sure that we're aware of all the needs of our parish. Also, another piece of that communication is my intention to develop a quarterly newsletter, something that we need to put together. I would encourage exchange of email addresses. We need to take a bigger approach to our social media. And I agree with Mr. Harrison there, is that the youth, that's their form of communication, is through social media. So we need to expand upon that. We need to grow that area so that our folks stay informed and can stay involved, and also provide any comments that they may have.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Manola. How will you ensure our senior citizens are provided for? How will you ensure our senior citizens are provided for?
Thank you. We've always taken an approach in recreation. Typically when you think of recreation, most people think about youth sports, youth programs, and things along those nature. To me, recreation is much bigger than that. Recreation also involves our senior citizens, and it also involves our disabled folks. And we've done some things within the parish to bring those programs in. We had a special camp for those with disabilities, something that went over very well, had great participation from it. But from our senior citizen standpoint, having a father that's 82 years old, we need to make sure that we're providing them the same form of recreation, or a different type of recreation, that they stay active in our communities. The last thing you want is the senior citizens to just stay at home and not be able to do anything. You want them involved. One of the things we just incorporated, or just trying out, we're going to have, some of you may have heard, is a senior sock hop. That's going to be where at the different community centers throughout the parish, they're going to have sock hops for anybody and over 50. Now, I take a little offense to that. No, senior citizens over 50, but they're going to have sock hop to where we will test 2 different times. That's going to be through our recreation department. One is going to be an evening sock hop event, and another one's going to be during the day, because typically folks don't like to drive at nighttime when it comes to senior folks. So that's one thing that I'm looking forward to see the kind of reception, to see the kind of response we get from that program.
Okay. Mr. Harris, the same question. How will you ensure our senior citizens are provided for?
Well, one of the blessings I've had in life is to spend time with our seasoned citizens. I work with a group of seniors and at the YMCA where I hail from, and we grew that program to be the largest in the city, based on doing what they wanted to do. Right now, we have a program for seniors that line dance, and I guarantee you that no one in this building can keep up with our group. I'm not a betting man, but if I were, with the line dancing, you could hold a match to them. Aerobics, Zumba, things like that are great to keep them active, keep them involved. But we also have a program that we run with Energy. Everybody heard of Energy? This is out of our New Orleans branch. It's a weatherization program to help keep their funds, because it's fixed income when you become a senior for the most part. So we have the ability to teach them how to save and conserve energy. Once they attend these classes, they receive a certificate and they also receive discounts on their bills. We bring people in to administer to our seniors according to their livelihoods and what they enjoy. We have a sewing class. We have bingo. We do things to keep them actively involved. There's a technology class that teaches them how to use the keyboard at one of our neighboring facilities. And we partner with agencies. Not the parish would do this, but we would make sure that this is available to those seniors to make sure, because I have a mother. She's sitting right here. How you doing, Ms. Lily? And she's a senior. She's a senior. So, and with that, we want to make sure we keep them very, very active and very, very engaged. So, because believe it or not, all of us, we're one step closer to being a senior ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 15 minutes, you all. I'm going to try to get through these questions as quickly as I possibly can. We want you guys to get a chance to meet and talk with the candidates in person. So we'll try to get this done as quickly as possible. The next question is on accountability. Mr. Harrison, we'll start with you. Recently, there was a fire ban put in place, and as we all know, the family of the current parish president was one of the persons who started the fire. Yet they received no citation and have not been held accountable. How, as parish president, will you assure you address this matter and accountability is taken?
Well, I know the family of the parish president, went to school with the kids. Justice for all. For all. Not for some, but for all. No one's above the law, as I previously stated. Be that example. Don't ask anyone else to do something you're not willing to do. And be accountable for the consequences of the choices you made at that particular time. Don't kick the can down the road. Own it. Make amends for it. And whatever consequences come, be willing to stand and take those like a man. That's my answer.
Thank you. Ms. Manola, same question. Recently, there was a fire ban put in place, and as we know, the family of the current parish president was the person who started this fire. Yet they received no citation and haven't been held accountable. How, as parish president, would you address this matter?
First of all, as I stated earlier about accountability, character, and integrity, part of my oath has been a CPA revolves around the ethics. But I've got a bigger oath, and that oath is to my dad and my family. As I mentioned earlier, there's no one else that can hold me more accountable than I'm going to hold myself. In regards to the incident you're talking about, only differences I see is I own a lot that my house is on, my sons own a lot that their house is on. But no, I do think just because you're parish president, we need to be held to the same standards as the rest of the residents of this parish. But again, character and integrity and accountability is something that is not compromisable in my regards. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Manola, we'll start with you with this question. What will the parish do to clean up abandoned areas that no one occupies? I'm assuming that's what the question is asking. What will the parish do to clean up abandoned areas that no one occupies?
Thank you. One of the things that we have in the parish is we have an officer of the parish that actually goes around, and if there is a complaint filed or something by someone within the parish, they go and investigate. They go and do their due diligence, look at the homes, look if they're actually habitable or not, and just from a safety concern for anybody that would be interested in doing that, would be interested in trying to rebuild it. If it can be rebuilt, we give the homeowner the opportunity to actually make the needed repairs and so forth, and we go back and inspect that home. If it can't be, if it can't be refurbished, then we actually send a letter to the homeowner, the property owner, and asking them to go and either take down their building or so forth. If it's not done and if it becomes a blighted area, then within a period of time, the parish will actually go and contract someone out to come and demolish the home and demolish the property. But again, notification is given multiple times to those property owners to be able to take care of it themselves. Some can't. If they can't, like I said, the parish does it, and then if they can't afford to pay for it, it then goes on the tax rolls when that property is sold. The new property owner, it's the responsibility of them to take care of the taxes when it comes to that.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison, same question. What would the parish do to clean up abandoned areas that no one occupies?
To clean up abandoned areas that no one occupies, what I would first do, and I'm going to walk you through the steps, I'm going to offer free will writing classes. Not classes, but free will writing. Partnering with LSU, Southern Law School to teach people how to write wills. Because at least 90% of those properties that are blighted or adjudicated, end up being blighted and adjudicated, those are because they're tied up in families. Because people don't like to talk about their mortality. A will means one day I'm going to die. So we say, just die, and everybody gonna figure it out. Well, that's when you get overgrown, unkept, for the most part. So once that is done, the process is a lengthy process. A neighbor files a complaint, the inspector comes out, the grass is cut, is added to the tax bill. If it's not inhabitable, it's knocked down. Someone comes and pays the taxes. Well, that you have to pay those taxes for 4 years. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's long. Some cities and parishes have adopted a much quicker system of an auction system where you can actually own that property within 18 months. So if you can own that property in 18 months, now you are the owner of record. You can pay those taxes, but you can't do anything to improve that property, because if you improve the property, then I can pay your taxes back plus what you improved it for, and it comes back to me. So to fix the system, you sell the property quicker. First, you teach people to write the wills where it's their property and who they're going to allocate it to, so it's clear ownership. Then you make sure that you speed up the process, whether it be via auction, online, or in person. That ownership can be expedited. So now I have a true person that I can reach out to make sure this property is upkept at the right condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison, we'll start with you with this question. And I'm assuming this is about the youth. Since Hurricane Katrina and Gustav in 2005 and 2008, respectively, 100,000 families have relocated here in West Baton Rouge Parish. Why has the infrastructure not been improved? The question again is, since Hurricane Katrina in 2005 and Hurricane Gustav in 2008, respectively, 100,000 families have relocated here in West Baton Rouge Parish. Why hasn't the infrastructure not been improved?
That's a great question. During Gustav and Katrina, I actually worked in this building. I was an employee of the YMCA, but I worked in this building to give the staff an opportunity to go home, take hot showers, eat meals. We housed people that were volunteering here doing that. They're now lifelong residents and lifelong friends. But it comes down to priorities. I mean, like I said, I'm on the outside looking in, but it's priorities. What is prioritized gets taken care of. Gustav was 15 years ago. Am I right? Yeah. And for it not to be taken care of, it brings about the question of what's your priority? How do you prioritize things? That would be my answer. And like I said, I'm on the outside looking in, and Jason, you have much more insight on this than me. That was a strange question.
Thank you. When you asked that question about 15 years ago, I looked up because I see a lot of my former educators up in here like, you better answer that one right. Same question, Mr. Manola. Since Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Gustav in 2005 and 2008, respectively, 100,000 families have relocated here in West Baton Rouge Parish. Why hasn't the infrastructure not been improved?
Okay, thank you. And I'm glad you repeated that question because I had some question in my mind when you said 100,000 families have relocated to West Baton Rouge Parish. Our population in West Baton Rouge Parish is 30,000 people, so it hadn't been 100,000 families that have relocated, but there have been significant amounts of people that have relocated from not only the New Orleans area, but other surrounding parishes to West Baton Rouge Parish. And look, again, the one thing that there's also a major flood event during this time when East Baton Rouge Parish suffered a lot of loss. Livingston Parish suffered a lot of losses. But I don't know if you guys can recall, but there was a map that they kept showing on the news channels. And that map, all around the greater Baton Rouge area, it was red. And those were flooded homes. There was one white dot on that map. That white dot was West Baton Rouge Parish. Do I think we can continue to improve upon the drainage we have in our parish? Absolutely. We need to do that. We need to continue to improve. You know, like I said, just right now, some of the things we're looking at over the next 4 years, the Stumpy Bayou project, that's huge for the northern end of our parish. That's the major drainage system for the northern end of our parish. On the southern end of our parish, we're actually looking at potentially having a diversion canal for the Cooley Canal, whereas the Cooley drains directly into the intercoastal. There's diverts directly to the intercoastal and doesn't have to go to what I call the Choctaw towards Iberville, not the Choctaw that goes back to Manola, but the Choctaw towards Iberville. Diverts some of the water quicker to the intercoastal, which provides better drainage from basically St. Francis Street all the way to the Addis line. But that's just an example, a couple examples of things we can do to improve upon our drainage. But we need to continue to look at ways to do things better. Look, we can't sit still. That is not what we need to do. We need to continue to look at improving our parish.
Thank you. The next question, and we have a couple of more questions. We have 2 minutes remaining here. Mr. Manola, this is for you. We're going to start with you, rather. Do you feel there's a need to make leadership or staffing changes in an effort to provide increased accountability and transparency to the taxpayers of West Baton Rouge Parish? The question again is, do you feel there is a need to make leadership or staffing changes in an effort to provide increased accountability and transparency to the taxpayers of West Baton Rouge Parish?
I think I've talked about it several times tonight about the accountability and how I view myself and being accountable to the people and being accountable to myself. But that same thing goes to all of the employees of West Baton Rouge Parish. They're going to be held to the same standards that I hold myself. We should be transparent and accountable to the voters of this parish. Those are the taxpayers that actually are providing the taxes so that we can provide the services and do the things we do. So again, when I talk about accountability, and I've been focused on holding myself accountable, but that also extends down to, if I'm fortunate enough to be your next parish president, those folks that are part of my administration will be held to the same accountable standards as I hold myself.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, the same question. Do you feel there is a need to make leadership or staffing changes in an effort to provide increased accountability and transparency to the taxpayers of West Baton Rouge Parish?
Well, my answer to this is pretty simple. If you're doing your job, you stay. If you're competent and you're able to perform your duties, you stay. If you're a friend of a friend and accountability is an issue, pink slip, I need someone else to fill this position. I'm as transparent as they come. Sometimes I'm nice, sometimes I'm not so nice, but I'm a coach. And that's a culture that I create wherever I go. I coach hard because I love hard. I fight for my staff. If it's something they need, I'm going to fight for them to make sure they have all the tools required to be successful. But the other end of that, the other side of that double-edged sword is I have high expectations. I have high benchmarks. I have systems that can be put in place for audits to make sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and the basis of any relationship is trust. And in some cases in this parish, they don't trust the current administration. So what do you do to gain the trust back? It takes time. Trust is earned, it's not given. It's not something you take for granted. When it's broken, it takes time to get it back. So I'll be in the business of getting the trust of the people through transparency, through town halls, open dialogues with the staff and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. We still have a couple of outstanding questions here, but we've reached our time. I don't think we've ever had a forum where we ran out of time for questions, so that's an excellent thing. We encourage you all to ask those questions to the candidates following the forum. Hopefully they will be around to answer those questions. But now we're going to start with some closing statements, and then we'll have a couple of closing remarks from some of our leadership team here. So we started with Mr. Harrison with the closing statement. Ms. Manola, we're going to give you the opportunity to start with a closing statement.
Yes.
First of all, again, I want to thank the Justice for Trail, and I want to thank all of you for actually coming out here tonight. And hopefully you were able to gain a better understanding of who I am and what I am about. I'm about West Baton Rouge Parish. I take pride in calling West Baton Rouge Parish my home. I take pride that West Baton Rouge Parish has been called home for 4 generations of my family. You know, I've talked about several things tonight, and I've told you what my campaign was based on. My campaign is based on experienced leadership, which I think is critical over the next 4 years, and also over the next, to providing a vision for what we want our parish to look like 20 to 30 years from now. We're at a critical time in West Baton Rouge Parish. You know, we're right there to where we're starting to see some growth, but you're starting to see more interest in West Baton Rouge Parish. We need to continue to promote economic development. Not only a lot of our focus is on the chemical industry. It's such a big part of our industry. The other piece is small businesses. Small businesses are vital to West Baton Rouge Parish. We need to continue to promote small businesses within our community. Second thing I talked about is commitment to community, commitment to West Baton Rouge Parish, the entire West Baton Rouge Parish. Hopefully you guys have got an understanding or got a glimpse of what it means to me and how I am part or consider myself committed to all of West Baton Rouge Parish. And the last thing is about accountability. Mr. Harrison is right. You know, we just had a meeting on a job site today, actually it was yesterday, with a person that basically told us, you know, he had lost confidence in West Baton Rouge Parish. He had lost confidence for things that were done 20, 30 years ago. You know, and what I told him at our meeting when we sat there, I said, confidence is lost in buckets. It's gained in thimble-sized buckets. And just today, he told me we have started to fill the bucket back up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Well, in closing, you've heard some of my initiatives. You've heard the plan on moving forward. Now the choice is yours. It's a choice to be made. Is what type of leader do you want? A teacher, coach, mentor, healthcare, recreation, financial responsibility. What do you want? Do you want a change? Do you want something different? Jason and we have no access to grind, but what do you want? I'm asking you to support me with a new recreational facility, which I'll outline how that happens. Because while we're doing this, kids can't play in here. There's no volleyball, no pickleball, no basketball taking place in this building. So we need a true recreation facility. I have a plan to get that done at a minimal cost to the parish. We need infrastructure. We need youth. How long must we wait for an involved leader? How long must we wait for someone that truly cares about this parish to truly make a difference with their sleeves rolled up and getting it out of the mud, working in the dirt, side by side, working in a boardroom, working in the streets, How long must we wait? The answer to that is simple. Absentee voting is taking place right now. Early voting is September 30th through October 7th. And before you go to the tailgates and the parade on October 14th, answer the question, how long must we wait? I'm born and raised in West Baton Rouge.
Thank you.
And we have 5 generations that are here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Please give Mr. Harrison and Mr. Manola a round of applause. They answered all of the questions. They did an excellent job, and yourselves for asking so many questions. The Justice for Trail organization has been doing this for 6 years, and this is just phenomenal. Every year it gets better and better, every election season it gets better and better, and we plan to expand as the seasons go on. We're going to have some closing remarks now. I'm going to ask Ms. Angela with New Gamma Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated to come and give us some remarks. They graciously came out and they helped volunteer for us. Would you like to give some remarks? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just following what I was told to do.
We just want to say thank you this evening, and it has been a pleasure to be a part of this information, education platform and forum. To each candidate, thank you so much for allowing us to come out, and also to the Justice for Pharrell, and also for the Road to Justice, to the NAACP, and of course to the sorority members in the back of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Nu Gamma Omega. Yes, we hail in the downtown Baton Rouge area, but a lot of our members live here in West Baton Rouge. So it is our job to support through our initiative, Advocate for Social Justice, and make sure that we get people out to register to vote, educate people and inform people as far as who the candidates are. And most importantly, it's not just enough to go and vote, but you have to be an informed voter. That's the critical thing. Don't just go because you know that person or you see them on television, or they've spent enough money and had the biggest and the baddest ad. No, you need to be informed. You need to be informed. You need to be educated. You need to find out about the candidate. And this is the best way to do it in these type of forums. A lot of people, you may not knock on every door, but most importantly, you can come here and ask the questions. And then also, too, after it's over, call the person. Because guess what? When you go into the polls, your voice and your vote does matter. We talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people are very apathetic, and they're wondering, why should I vote? But the most important thing is if you don't vote, then you should have no say after that candidate gets in office. If you do not go out to the polls and vote, you have no say, and you need not even participate or criticize or get out and say why this and why that, because you didn't exercise your right. So it's important to come out to every forum. There's going to be another one tomorrow, and we're going to be here. And again, if you know one person, make sure you tell that one person, come to the polls with me, because we can go to Walmart, we can go to all these different things, and I work for LSU, okay? And I went to Southern, okay? We can go to the games. But here's the critical part. Love Southern, love LSU, and all of the universities. But the most important thing that we have to understand is who's going to be there after the game. And these are our candidates, and these are the people that make the decisions that represent us. So we need to be informed, and we need to make sure that we do our part and go out and vote. So get a person, bring them to the polls. If you got to load up your car, don't look for this group or that group to bring the people to the polls. No, you do your part, because that is being an educated and informed voter. And so we thank you so much for this participation. Thank you to our councilperson. Thank you so much for inviting us. And thank you to Mr. Elliott also, too, and the NAACP. And we look forward to more forums like this. We also have our former state representative, Patricia Haynes Smith, in the back. and she is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And we also have a member who has been in our sorority for over 50 years that's here. So guess what? It's never too late. So seniors, we love you, but make sure that you get to the polls too and bring somebody with you too. And thank you to our Vice President, Mrs. Linda Piper, and to each and every one. Thank you so much for coming out today, and thank you for having us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to acknowledge some of our partners. The West Side Journal is streaming this forum live on their Facebook page. Thank you, Mr. Elliot Dogan, for setting it up for us. So if you want to go back, I'm not sure if that will be made available later, but if you want to go on it will. Thank you. If you want to go on the Facebook page of the West Side Journal, if you want to watch it again or share it to someone who wasn't able to make it, please do that. We also want to recognize our dignitaries and our elected officials. So if you could please stand or raise your hand if you're an elected official or a dignitary in the community. We see Mayor Lee over there, a councilwoman, a parish council member, that school board member, representative. Yes, awesome. And we have some candidates for this election. Anyone who's running? The NAACP, of course, is in the building. Thank you very much. Thank everyone for coming out. There is refreshments for the candidates over to the left after this is over with. And we just want to thank everyone again for coming out and supporting this. And we want to remind you that tomorrow is the Sheriff's Forum. It will be here at 6 p.m. So some of those who couldn't make it tonight, please let them know to come back tomorrow. The candidates for Sheriff's or West Baton Rouge Parish will be here. We'll have a forum for them as well tomorrow. Before we close, Ms. Tara, would you like to say a few words? Ms. Tara, please give her a hand as she comes. She's the president and founder of the Justice for Trail organization. She helped start in all of this, and we're so blessed to have her.
Good afternoon again to everyone. In closing, our organization, Justice for Trail, we are invested in this community. We host these forums to bring in the candidates so they can share their vision and platform. We want the community to be involved with what's going on. So we are thankful for all the candidates that are here. And again, our prayers are with you guys on this journey. We are, again, vested in this community, so we just wish the best for each candidate. Thank you, guys.
And with that, that concludes the forum for tonight. Thank you all again for coming out. Drive safely, and we will see you back tomorrow the same time. Thank you.